Hello, my name is Mike Ciaramella, and I am the Seafood Safety and Technology Specialist with New York Sea Grant and Cornell University. I administer and maintain the Seafood HACCP Alliance's Segment 1 online course, and have developed this video to review changes that have been made to modernize the course and make it more accessible. Before jumping into those updates, I want to share with you a quick review of the registration and enrollment process. Students can register for the course through the course website at seafoodhaccp.cornell.edu. The course website contains all information about the Alliance trainings and how to register for and navigate the online course. This includes a general overview of the Seafood HACCP Alliance's training program, the information about the Alliance itself, an overview of the segmented course structure, the requirements for taking the online course, and the registration process. Students can register for the course by filling out the online registration form and making payment by credit card, or by printing out a registration form and mailing it to us with a check. Registration and payment online will allow for quicker access to the course, as enrollments are typically processed within 24 business hours. Keep in mind and remind students that registrations are not processed on weekends and holidays, and they should plan accordingly to ensure that they can complete the course before your scheduled Segment 2 training. Once enrolled, students will have 6 months to complete. Part of the modernization and to make the course more accessible to Spanish language participants, we have developed a new Spanish language registration site with a separate registration form. Students who enroll in this Spanish language course will be enrolled in the separate course with a learning management software set up in Spanish. This means all course features, navigation, and account information will also be in Spanish. Previously, students had the option to choose the English or Spanish language within the same course, which meant all course navigation and account information remained in English. With the two separate language courses being managed, it is important for students to select their desired course language at the time of registration. Now I'd like to take a closer look at the course content and structure. The overall structure of the course has not changed, and there are still 12 modules, which starts with a review of the online course and how to easily navigate it, and is followed by 11 modules covering prerequisite programs, seafood safety hazards, preliminary steps, hazard analysis, critical control points, critical limits, critical control point monitoring, corrective actions, verification procedures, record keeping, and the Seafood HACCP regulation. While not new, the interactive learning features that have always been embedded in the course had to be updated to function more smoothly and transition away from outdated and retiring software programs like Adobe Flash Player. These features include identifying significant hazards and navigating the CCP decision tree to identify critical control points. One of the main changes implemented during the 2021 course modernization was the transition from end of module quizzes to knowledge assessment questions, which are embedded throughout each module. There are 3 in each module for a total of 36 knowledge assessments. The assessments are set up so that students are unable to progress through the modules until they answer a question correctly. If answered incorrectly, each assessment is a pool of 3 questions, so that a new question is presented on the second or third attempts if necessary. This helps to ensure they are accessing and paying attention to the course content. In addition to knowledge assessments, a series of training videos were developed to complement some of the course modules. 9 videos total were created to complement modules 3 through 11. Each video provides a review of the module content and the concepts covered to reinforce and better engage students. The final knowledge assessment in each module with a training video is located after that video. To access it, students must actively click a button to indicate they have watched the video before they can access and complete the final knowledge assessment. Now I'd like to share some videos with you to give you a sense of what they cover for the students. We'll start with video number 1, which is embedded in module 3 and covers identifying hazards.
Now that we have reviewed some of the common hazards associated with seafood products, let's take a deeper dive into the resources you can access to assist in identifying which are associated with the particular products and processes you are working with. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has developed the Fish and Fishery Products Hazards and Controls Guidance, often referred to as the Hazards Guide, as a resource to inform and guide processors in understanding and properly controlling the hazards commonly attributed to seafoods. Proper identification of the hazards you must control is crucial to developing an effective HACCP plan and ensuring compliance with the federal seafood HACCP regulation. In this video, we will review how you can use the Hazards Guide to properly identify which hazards you will need to consider controlling based on the species you are working with and how it is processed. Chapter 3 of the Hazards Guide contains 3 tables that will outline the specific hazards you need to consider. The first 2 tables to note cover the hazards specific to the species you are working with, or species hazards, and are separated by vertebrates and invertebrate species. Table 3.2 in the Hazards Guide will show you what hazards of concern are associated with different vertebrate species, like finfish. Table 3.3 in the Hazards Guide will show you what hazards of concern are associated with different invertebrate species, like crustaceans and mollusks. The third table to note in Chapter 3 is Table 3.4, which shows the hazards associated with how your product is processed, or your process hazards. Now, we will work through an example of how you navigate and interpret the information provided in Chapter 3. To do that, we need to understand the species we are working with and how it is processed. For this example, we will use the claws of a cooked Jonah crab, Latin name Cancer borealis. Let's start by identifying species-related hazards associated with cooked Jonah crab claws. Turn to the Potential Invertebrate Species-Related Hazards table, which is Table 3.3 in the Hazards Guide, and find Jonah crab in the first column of this table entitled Market Name, and Cancer borealis in column 2 entitled Latin Names. Now that we have found our species in Table 3.3, we read across the row and note which columns are checked. You will notice that each column is associated with a different species-related hazard and indicates the corresponding chapter, abbreviated CHP, in the Hazards Guide, where more information on that hazard can be found. Later, we will learn more about the structure of each chapter and how to navigate them to conduct your hazard analysis and build your HACCP plan. There is one last important thing to note when reading these tables. Note the superscript 2 on the first check in the Natural Toxins Hazard column. If we turn to the end of the table and read footnote number 2, we see that this hazard only applies if the product is marketed uneviscerated. Since we are only selling the claws, we can use this footnote to justify removing the natural toxins hazard from our list of concerns. Now, let's identify any potential hazards associated with how we are processing our Jonah crabs. To identify hazards associated with our process, we turn to the Potential Process-Related Hazards table, or Table 3.4. We focus our attention on Column 1, which describes the finished product food. Because we are working with cooked Jonah crab claws, the finished product food description in Column 1 that best describes our product is cooked shrimp, crab, lobster, and other fish, including cooked meat, sections, and whole fish, and surimi-based analog products. Once the finished product food is identified, we turn to Column 2 to identify the package type. We have 2 options, reduced oxygen packaged and other than reduced oxygen packaged. Our cooked Jonah crab claws will be packaged in trays covered with oxygen-permeable plastic, so we will select other than reduced oxygen packaged as our package type. Now, to identify the potential hazards of concern, we read across the cooked crab other than reduced oxygen packaged row and identify the columns with checks. Those checks correspond to the specific hazards and their associated chapters in the Hazards Guide at the top of each column, and represent those that could be a potential hazard in our product as a result of how it is processed. We have identified 4 process-related food safety hazards: pathogenic bacteria growth, temperature abuse, pathogenic bacteria survival through cooking and pasteurization, allergens and food intolerant substances, and metal inclusion. It is important to note that allergens and food intolerant substances, while combined in the column and a single chapter, are often considered separately because not all food intolerant substances are listed as a major food allergen in the United States. Thus, we will move forward considering them as separate hazards. Using the tables in Chapter 3 of the Hazards Guide, we have identified 6 potential hazards associated with our example, Jonah crab claws. As we continue to explore the HACCP process through this training, you will learn how important the tables are for developing an effective HACCP plan. Congratulations! You should now be familiar with the layout and structure of Chapter 3 so you can properly identify potential species-related and process-related hazards.
Now let's take a look at video number 9, which is embedded in Module 11 and covers the topic of records.
The Seafood HACCP regulation requires that all processors maintain records applicable to their operation, which can include the HACCP plan and supporting documentation, CCP monitoring and corrective action, verification records, sanitation control records, and importer verification records. CCP monitoring and corrective action records must also include signatures or initials indicating they were reviewed within 1 week of being recorded. Records must be kept for 1 year for fresh product and 2 years for frozen, preserved, or shelf-stable products. As a reminder, as covered in the Prerequisite Programs module, the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, CFR 117, also requires training and corresponding training records be maintained by seafood processors to indicate that individuals involved in the implementation and monitoring of food safety practices are adequately trained to do so. While training is important and required through FSMA, training records don't have to be included in the HACCP plan and can be maintained separately. Each control strategy in the Hazards Guide contains guidance on the types of records that are relevant for that specific hazard and control strategy. Referring back to the Hazards Guide and our Mahi-Mahi model, the records necessary for the CCP for histamine and receiving are a receiving log, corrective action records as needed, and verification procedures in place, including accuracy and calibration checks. The receiving log should document the number of containers examined, the number of containers in each delivery, and the results of checks for adequacy of ice. Congratulations! That concludes this lesson on records. Our HACCP plan is now complete.
Now I'd like to review the completion process and what you should be looking for to ensure your Segment 2 enrollees meet the training prerequisites of completing the online course. Once students are enrolled in the course, they have 6 months to complete the training. The gradebook is monitored daily during business hours, and those with 36 points, indicating that all 36 knowledge assessments have been completed successfully, are issued a completion email. This email is sent from seafoodhaccp@cornell.edu and is dated the day it is sent. The date issued is not always reflective of the exact day the student completed the course. For example, those who complete the course on a weekend or holiday will receive a completion email dated for the next business day. While we are happy to adjust completion dates to accurately reflect the day the course was completed when necessary for weekend or holiday Segment 2 trainings, we will not date a completion email before our digital timestamp indicates the course was completed. For example, if a student finishes the online course at 6 a.m. the day of their Segment 2 training, the completion notice will be dated for the same day as the training. It is best to encourage or even require students to provide proof of completion in the form of an email from us, seafoodhaccp@cornell.edu, at least a couple days before your scheduled training. It is also important to note that while the modules are set up so that students must navigate the pages consecutively, they are not required to complete the modules in order. Therefore, students can jump to Module 12 and complete that module first. Keep this in mind if a student tries to confirm completion of the online course with a screenshot confirming they have completed Module 12, which you see here on this slide. Students must complete all 36 knowledge assessments before an email is sent confirming completion, and that email is the only way to truly know students have completed the online course and must be provided to AFTO before certificates will be issued. While this video was developed to provide a general review of the major updates and changes that were made in 2021, we are happy to offer any trainers interested in the opportunity to review the course more fully. Trainers interested in reviewing the online course are welcome to contact us at seafoodhaccp@cornell.edu, and we can enroll you as a course auditor. You will not receive a completion notice once finished, but you will be able to access and view all of the course content to see what students see. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, you can contact us at seafoodhaccp@cornell.edu or me directly at mc2544@cornell.edu.